Greetings. We continue our working day. I am Valentin Pugachev, and there's a pilot project of Ukrainian UCMC, which is called Spokesperson of Peaceful Life. We'll be talking about children who have become innocent victims of undeclared war. About 5 million people suffered during the events in ATO. About 500,000 of children lived in Donetsk region. More than half of them became witnesses of the events in this region. We believe that every one of these children requires psychological rehabilitation. They have to come back to peaceful life as soon as possible. Today we'll be talking to people who work with our children who are victims of war. Unfortunately, these words will be used by several more generations in our life and in the life of Ukraine. How are these children adapted to peaceful life? How the society will react to their behavior? And what are the first challenges we will have to overcome? That is what we'll be discussing with our speakers, Tetyana Shulga, psychologist from Slaviansk, and Anastasiya Slavianska, administrator of Art Space Free House from Kramatorsk. Tetyana, Anastasiya, do you hear us? Yes, we hear you well. Good afternoon. Before we start, my request is please speak clearly and not quickly, because we have the simultaneous translation. Tetyana. Good afternoon. I work in Slaviansk in the Center of Psychosocial Rehabilitation. That center was set up in our city by Kiev Mogila Academy with the support of Malta International Assistance Service. It provides psychological assistance to the citizens of Slaviansk and to IDP. In Slaviansk, we have officially registered more than 300,000 IDPs. The similar center was set up in Kiev by Kiev Mogila Academy, and I would like to add that our center, the work of our center covers also the close-by cities Nikolaevka and Krasny Liman. And in Krasny Liman, just like in Slaviansk, a lot of work is done with children and with adults individually in groups. We organize different meetings, seminars, and trainings which help to develop this psychological culture. I will talk about that a little later. Many children come to us. I hear that it is important to talk about children today. And what do the children come with? The children have fears, they have disorders of sleep, they are aggressive, they are irritative, they don't study that well in school. Sometimes the children have inuria, sometimes they are stumbling. We work a lot with children individually and in groups, and it's obvious for us the connection between the psychological condition of children and adults. And I don't want to not really to pay attention to the support for adults, but also we understand that support for children is really important. We can say that the first and most important level of assistance is the assistance the child gets from the parents, from the family. The parents, if they're stable, if they can be the support for a child if they are strong and confident, they can provide support to their child. That's important. And we can say that the first level of assistance could be rendered in the family. We teach the parents how to inform children, how to support a child in this situation. The parents should understand what could be connected in their behavior, what in their behavior is connected to the events they have survived through. Very often the parents, because they love a child so much, they want to help, but they do something which is opposite to what should have been done, not what the child needs to get at this moment of time. Then the second level of assistance could be rendered at school, where teachers can pay more attention to the condition of the children, those children who require psychological assistance more. The school psychologists help them. Talking about how the school psychologists and teachers are taught, I would like to mention that from November last year, Kyiv Mogila Academy, together with the Ministry of Education and UNICEF, have been implementing the project on enhancing stress resistance to the resistance to stress, and they worked in Slaviansk, in Kramatorsk, in Svetogorsk. They were teaching school psychologists, they were teaching or training the school teachers, and that was about psychological trauma and psychosociological assistance in school. They trained 400 school psychologists who rendered assistance to more than 10,000 school children, and they trained several thousand of teachers on issues of how to support children at school. And the children who are in these groups and who do not get, who after participating in these groups in school, if their condition does not improve, and there might be up to 11% of such children, then such children are to be taken to therapists who will start the long-term deeper therapy, and that's done in our center. The long-term therapy is not something for school, because the specialization is somewhat different. When I started, when I was enumerating all these different types of work, methods of work, I would like to also say that we had 2 psychological festivals in autumn. It's important to mention that. In Krasny Liman and in Slaviansk, we had such festivals where we were using the method of sand therapy, and children were building the city of happiness out of sand. The Malta assistance service supported us, UNICEF and volunteers from the For Peace organization, this municipal authorities in Slaviansk and Krasny Liman supported us. The children were building a city. It was art therapy. They received many gifts. The parents were receiving advice from the psychologists who were practicing psychologists. Everyone was happy, and that was very important. event that we will be organizing in the future. Thank you, Tetyana. You have up to 1 minute, so please be short. So basically, what we want to say, what's our main message? This problem today, the problem, what our children survive through. If we do not help children today, if we do not do what we are doing, then this could result in big social problems, because the psychological trauma can stay with the child during the whole life. Then the children may become aggressors or victims. They will have so many fears. It affects their ability to study, to some creative work, to development, to how they develop their families, how they raise their children. If we look into the future, I don't want to really exaggerate, but the depression and frustration are really very serious things, and these things are possible. So we understand that we have to work with all these. Thank you, Tetyana. Stay with us. In a few minutes there will be a session of questions and answers. Now, Anastasiya, the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm Nasta. I'm an administrator of Vilna Khata, Free House. This is a youth platform where socially active people meet. Our kids who have survived the war, lived through the war and adolescence, and we are going towards formal and informal education. Every day we have thematic events, master classes. We show cinema, we conduct poetic soirees, we involve people into social projects, because helping others also helps yourself, and we have several projects that are aimed at children. First is mentorship. Our volunteers look for families that are in crisis situations. At the moment, this is a post-war time here in Kramatorsk, and our people start to communicate to children and become not just teachers, but first of all friends for them. And this program is well known all over Ukraine and also abroad. Everyone can join in, and we have been working with 5 families and 14 children. We also work with local pediatrics hospital number 3. We have newborn babies there. Some of them are abandoned, and they are being taken here from the entire anti-terrorist operation zone. And together with the Lviv Center for Caring About Children, we have provided them with clothes and other stuff, hygienic goods, and now we are trying to provide them with 2 rooms where they live. And it's not necessarily children from our city. Also, the Lviv Education Foundation has organized a program called the Country of Socially Active People. The children have come back from Lviv 2 weeks ago. They've been looking at the city and at social projects in Lviv, how people solve their problems. Of course, there are problems even in Lviv, and they have also looked at the work of all those structures from inside, and we have now an idea to open a children's center, and our dream was realized on the 10th of September. We now have a project called Creative Home. It's for children from 1 to 12 years of age, and we've worked with 70 kids over 45 days. Thank you, Nastya. Thank you, Tetyana. And my first question is to Anastasiya. As far as I know, one of the projects had the name Good Neighbor. It was aimed at those families that found themselves in dire straits. How many people got your support, and what was this support? Look, these 5 families took part in this program, Good Neighbor, and the children, 14 children who live in these families, they were helped by 14 children. Good Neighbor and mentorship are the programs that cannot live without each other, because Good Neighbor is help to moms and dads, and Good Neighbor is to children. Do you plan to open something like free house in other districts of Donetsk region, and do you cooperate with volunteers in other districts? Oh yes, the active people from Slaviansk came to us this summer, and they have opened such a program called Conservatory. We also cooperate with Artemis and Drushkivka. We are now setting up contacts with Mariupol. Yes, we do want to create a network of communication between people. This would be very interesting, very good. My laconic question goes to Tetyana. Do you have statistics how many children have suffered in Slaviansk as a result of combat? I don't have such statistics because this is very hard to calculate. We think that all the children who were in Slaviansk and have lived through these horrible events, they have to receive support anyway. If it's interesting about the figures, I can tell you that right after Slaviansk became free, it took only a week for professional psychologists of the city to organize a association that started to provide help to both adults and children. And if we calculate how much they've done and with how many people they worked, we can say that they worked with more than 5,000 people up to now, and many of them are children, of course. And please, a bit slower and within 1 minute. Well, I can tell you that out of 5,000 people about which I told you, we can say that half of them are children. The work of psychologists on the territory of Slaviansk started as soon as the city became free. Okay, and now we're going to ask questions. If there are any questions, please address them to our speakers and introduce yourself.
UCMC. A year has passed since Slaviansk is liberated, and the psychologists have been working with children for a year. What's your impression? Can you still feel that the children survived through all these military actions? People with arms in the streets. You mean children? Yeah. Thank you for your question. When we work with children, they don't make an impression of children who are depressed so much, or they're sick. Just looking at them, they are happy children who look just like regular children. But when we start working with them, that is what we find out. That all the um, uh, feelings, the fear is still with them. Very often, the fears which are with children. Today, children do not say, I'm afraid of the weapons, of tanks, of military, of war, but they may be afraid of some monsters, of some fairy tale characters. The children who are in school, they are afraid of dragons, for example, and you have to work with them. Now you can understand that this is related to war. Working with the psychologist, when they're working with the psychologist, we find it out. I just want to say one thing which is so important. Very often, the truth it is important for our children to talk about what they are concerned with. But if it is something related to war, they see how their parents get distressed. Their parents say everything is over. We live in a peaceful land. Let's not remember that. Let's live new life. Let's enjoy what we have. Let's not uh, think. Let's not talk about bad things. Children understand it and they feel that parents get distressed and they do not talk about that. There are families where members of families say, okay, let's not discuss it. We live a peaceful life, and that's bad. If all that hasn't been lived through, well, it's important to tell about that to a child. It is important for parents to create the supporting atmosphere. The child, if he needs or she needs, they should talk about that. Thank you. And one more question from the audience, very brief. Sergei Malerchuk, UCMC. Tell, please. The question is to Tetyana. Are you using any methodological methodology developed by Western psychologists? Do you receive any assistance from international organizations like Doctors Without Borders or other international organizations? And the question to Anastasiya, similar to that, does your cooperation, Vilna Khata, cooperate with any other international projects? Thank you. Now, I've mentioned already that our center was set up with the support of Malta International Assistance Service. In our events, the UNICEF were also participating, as to organization Doctors Without Borders. We had contacts with them before. We cooperated and we supported each other. We communicated. As to professional training, we are happy that people from different countries come to Slaviansk, the psychologists who know how to work in the situations of crisis, and we have the opportunity to continue learning all the time from different specialists from different countries. We have workshops and trainings. All that is happening, so we do not feel ourselves alone. We do feel the support. And the final word to Anastasiya. First of all, our project, the foundation was giving us some funds. Also, the center Giserit, they were helping us with the meals, and Libera Liberace organization also were helping. Thank you, Anastasiya. Thank you, Tetyana. Before we finish the briefing, I would like to announce that this Thursday, as part of the pilot project of the UCMC, the spokesperson of Peaceful Life will be talking about the return of IDPs home to the east of the country. Thank you, Tetyana. Thank you, Anastasiya. See you soon.
Свидания.